President Ramon Magsaysay uplifted countless lives with his selfless service, incorruptible integrity, undaunted courage, and his belief in engaged citizenship. To this day, his spirit lives on and is replicated through our Magsaysay Awardees. The Ramon Magsaysay Award preserves his legacy by honoring outstanding servant leaders, men and women of integrity, courageous people who take action and sustain their advocacy. This is what it means to have greatness of spirit. When unleashed for the common good, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Greatness of spirit evolves through time to make this a reality. As the Ramon Magsaysay Award expands its reach further, let's use these values to seek and harness new servant leaders. Be a part of our community to build a better and kinder Asia for all.
We would also like to welcome our guests online. Hello to our audience on Zoom and on Facebook. The 14th Ako Para sa Bata and Ramon Magsaysay Transformative Leadership Institute Lecture Series featuring 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Bernadette J. MADRID will begin shortly. Meanwhile, here are some reminders. The video and audio functions of our Zoom audience will be disabled during the lecture of Dr. Bernie and panel discussion. For questions, clarifications, and/or comments, we encourage everyone to use the Q&A tab and the chat room in the Zoom webinar, and use the comment section for Facebook Live. We will try to address as many relevant questions and comments during the session. Please always be respectful in the chat room and the Q&A tab. We invite everyone to follow the Ramon Magsaysay Award, Child Protection Network Foundation, and Ako Para sa Bata on social media. You may find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We invite you to visit www.rmaward.asia for more information on the Ramon Magsaysay Award and this year's laureates. Thank you for joining us. We will begin the program flow in a few minutes.
Takbo, 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 lukso, luksong tinik. Lukso, luksong tinik. Lukso! Dangkal-dangkal ang taas ng kamay, pati paa at kukong patahay.
For over 20 years, she has been at the forefront of asserting every Filipino child's right to be protected from danger. She lovingly takes on the role of a surrogate mother when a child is abused or exploited, physically, mentally, or emotionally. 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Bernadette Madrid is a champion of every child, and she does her work with so much humility, so much joy, and so much grace. She envisions that all children in the Philippines and throughout Asia are protected from abuse and neglect. She is well aware that there is still much work to be done. But we know that Bernadette Madrid will continue in leading the charge because she has greatness of spirit.
Bata-bata, lumabas ka sa kwarto mo. Nasa lansangan ang kwento ng mundo. Halika't magpaaraw, matutong tumakbo.
Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats as the program will start in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Magkakasama tayo, magkakampi sila, magpapakitang gilas sa ginuhit na linya. Huwag palampasin ang kahit na isa. Talasan ang iyong isip, mata at tainga. Sumusugod, umiiwas yung uyok ko, umaatras, lumulusot, umiilag, tumitsyempo, lumiiyak, lalampasan, bawat linya, tayo, kalaban sila, basta't tayo'y magkakasama, sigurado, ang saya-saya.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as the program will start in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Basta't kalkulado ang galaw ng iba.
Sa lumbang ini, sa higdaan, nakatanghog ako, hinonini sa runggamdam. Sa lupa ko, katurungan.
We would like to call on Dr. Namnama Villarta de Dios for our invocation as we formally start our program for today.
Saksit ng aking pagmamahal.
Please rise.
God before us, God beside, God within us abide, God in heaven and in this place. Father, we come into you this day. God in pleasure and God in pain, God forever you reign. God in gladness and God in strife.
in standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Bayang magiliw, pero tingin ng haran, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang himirang, duyong ka ng magiting, sa aming lulubig, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bangkay. May dilag at pula, lawit sa paglayong minamahal. Ang kislap ng mata at mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig. Ang bituin ng hari niya kailan pa may di magdidilig. Lupa ng karanyaman, atit pagsinta, walang atin sa aming likod. Aming ligaya namin ay marami, ang mamatayan dahil sa'yo.
Kindly take your seats. Let us welcome the host of our lecture series and Ako Para sa Bata opening session, none other than renowned journalist and television host, Miss Cara Patria David. Let's give her a round of applause.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Good day to everyone. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to the Ramon Magsaysay Center, the home of Asia's premier prize and highest honor, the Ramon Magsaysay Award. Today is a special day. It's a day of celebration. We are celebrating milestones that have helped move our shared advocacy of child protection forward, and that will ensure that all children in the Philippines will be better protected from violence and abuse of all forms. We celebrate today the 25th anniversary of the first child protection unit in the country. For those of us who are familiar with the child protection unit, I was a young journalist when it started, and it was just in a small room outside of PGH, but it's amazing after 25 years, it's really a milestone. From its humble beginnings as a singular unit, it has expanded to an army of children's advocates around the country. Palakpakan natin ang Child Protection Network. We also celebrate today the opening of the 14th Ako Para sa Bata Conference. Through this conference, we continue to empower our army with better tools to protect our children. And of course, today, we celebrate Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid. Yay, Bernie! Dr. Madrid is Executive Director of Child Protection Network because of her lifelong advocacy of championing children's rights and her contagious joy. We are all witness to her contagious joy, right? In doing so, she is elected to receive the Ramon Magsaysay Award, Asia's premier prize and highest honor. Congratulations, Bernie. So well-deserved. The two organizations representing today's celebrations are very dear to Dr. Madrid's heart, her very own Child Protection Network Foundation, and her newest family, the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation. The Child Protection Network Foundation and the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation are honored that we are joined today by their respective Board of Trustees, both on Zoom and live here at the Ramon Magsaysay Center. We are also joined by our friends from Consuelo Zobel Alger Foundation, the UNICEF, Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and the University of the Philippines, Manila, among many others. Aside from the more than 100 people joining us here live, we are also joined virtually by people from all over the world via Zoom and via the Facebook pages. and YouTube channels of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation and the Child Protection Network Foundation. My sources tell me that more than 1,000 people are already on Zoom watching us live right now. And more than 1,000 people are also on Facebook via the Child Protection, via the Ako Para sa Bata Child Protection Network Facebook page. So do invite your colleagues and friends to join us this morning virtually. Please allow me to give you an overview of what is in store for us this morning. First up is the official public lecture of 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid. Her lecture is part of the 64th Ramon Magsaysay Awards festival season and is the first ever Ramon Magsaysay lecture hosted here at the center since the pandemic. And the first ever Magsaysay lecture of hybrid nature. Special talaga si Bernie, ano? Following Dr. Madrid's lecture is Dr. Stella Manalo, who will discuss the conference objectives of the 14th Ako Para sa Bata Conference. And another important and historic moment for today's celebration is the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement between Child Protection Network and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. This will ensure that all children in the Philippines from today to generations to come will have that much needed added protection against abuse and violence. And then ending today's event is the Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Manila, Dr. Carmencita D. Padilla. We hope that all of you will learn a lot from today's session. To officially welcome you to today's celebration, please welcome on stage Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation Trustee, Emily Abrera. Emily is widely acknowledged as an authority and trailblazer in advertising and marketing management. She served as chairman, president, and CEO of McCann Erickson Philippines. Upon retirement, she was named a chairman emeritus at McCann World Group Philippines and non-executive chairman of McCann World Group and in the Asia-Pacific region. She has been a member of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation family for close to 20 years, serving as its chairperson, vice chairperson, and its interim president during various years. Palakpakan po natin, let's all welcome Ms. Emily Abrera.
Thank you. Good morning. In his speech before the Youth Moral Rehabilitation Rally in 1955, Philippine President Ramon Magsaysay said, "What are we planning and working so hard for today? Is it not to secure a future that will bring peace, prosperity, and safety to our children?" The concept of creating safe spaces for children is not foreign to the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation. In our storied 64-year history, we have honored transformative leaders in Asia who have been at the forefront of championing children's rights in their respective societies. Many of our Magsaysay laureates are pioneers who have introduced solutions that have only helped in creating spaces where children can feel safe, but in building a world where they can thrive and succeed. 1959, Ramon Magsaysay Awardee, wonderful lady named Titi Luz from Myanmar, rescued abandoned and wayward boys in Yangon's streets, giving them not only a roof over their heads and food, but a home and her heart, a haven and an opportunity to lead decent lives. 1989, Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Kim Im-soon is a widow who devoted her life to the service of South Korean orphans by setting up children's homes where they are being, she calls it, raised in love. 2013, Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Shakti Samuha. It's a Nepalese organization, the world's first anti-trafficking NGO. It was created and is run by trafficking survivors themselves. This is very unusual. It aims to empower trafficking survivors, many of whom are girls, so that they can lead a life of dignity. Over the past 6 decades, the Ramon Magsaysay Award has been witness to the crisis and challenges that afflict children all over Asia. And it is truly heartbreaking. But what gives us hope as a foundation is this: we continue to discover leaders who take on these challenges, armed with passion, dedication, grit, and with greatness of spirit. In the Philippines, we found greatness of spirit in Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid. It is the Foundation's honor to host this event in person and online for 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Bernadette J. Madrid, her beloved colleagues in Child Protection Network, and her esteemed community, many of whom are here. The Foundation congratulates Dr. Madrid and the PGH Child Protection Unit for 25 years of helping secure a future that can bring peace, safety, and personal fulfillment to Filipino children. Today is a celebration of your work, Dr. Madrid, of Child Protection Network's work, and the work of all children's rights advocates everywhere, many of whom I think are here today. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you, and welcome to the Ramon Magsaysay Center.
Thank you very much, Emily, for your inspiring message to start off today's festivities. Grabe, I had goosebumps hearing about the stories of the past awardees and of course the greatness of spirit of Dr. Madrid. Talagang today is a day for children and for child rights advocates like Dr. Madrid. We will be seeing more of Ms. Emily Abrera when she moderates the panel discussion later on. In the meantime, let's move on with our program. The Child Protection Network Foundation is pleased to be partnering with the Consuelo Zobel Alger Foundation in championing causes that are important and relevant to the changing times, especially that of child protection. To learn more about this partnership, let us hear from Dr. Mariela S. Castillo, a pediatrician and public health professional by training. Doc Yela is the Managing Director of Consuelo Zobel Alger Foundation, bringing with her a cross-sectoral lens to child protection with her vast experience in many areas, including the academe. She has managed the operations of the Child Protection Unit at the Philippine General Hospital, where she has worked extensively with children referred for child abuse evaluation. She has co-written protocols and guidelines on child maltreatment, and Doc Yela has also developed and managed the first comprehensive child maltreatment database for service and research in Asia. Folks, let us all welcome Dr. Mariela Castillo.
Thank you, Tara. Good morning. I have the honor of joining you all today on behalf of Consuelo Zobel Alger Foundation. It's an organization that has long-standing ties, both with the Philippine General Hospital Child Protection Unit, as well as with the Child Protection Network. 25 years ago, Consuelo's Patty Lions was at PGH for the launch of the Child Protection Unit. And Consuelo and the PGH Child Protection Unit have kept warm relations ever since. Consuelo contributed to the renovation of that one room, PGH CPU, and in 2020 provided support so that the unit could stay COVID-19 compliant and continue serving abused children throughout the pandemic. Consuelo also supported the Child Protection Network. And we have seen how the following of Ako Para sa Bata has grown from its early beginnings in 2003. Consuelo shares the network's advocacy to build the evidence base for practice in child protection by supporting research, such as the Evidence for Better Lives study by the University of Cambridge, together with the Global Partnership to End Violence Against Children, and also built on the support of UNICEF for the conduct of the National Baseline Study on Violence Against Children in the Philippines. We also support improving the services for children and their families by capacity building efforts such as the competency enhancement training for family court judges and the justice system, as well as trauma-informed care for service providers. So in 2010, Consuelo Foundation was recognized as the Child Protection Network's most valuable partner, and we remain committed to that partnership. We will continue working with the Child Protection Network towards establishing CPUs where there are none. These close ties have allowed us to witness together both the peaks and the valleys of child protection work. And one of the peaks that we are celebrating today is the 25th year anniversary of the PGH CPU. As you heard earlier, this is very close to my heart, having worked there for over 12.5 years, with the last 8 of which was as the Associate Director under Bernie's very able and very inspiring leadership. Congratulations, dear Bernie, for the most recent feather in your cap. But of course, Bernie will be the very first to say that this is not a personal accolade, but a success for the child protection community acting as one. Truly, addressing child abuse requires deliberate and consolidated action across several disciplines and sectors. In fact, across the whole of society. During these highs, the child protection community catalyzes the movement to rise, no different from, as Bernie would say, how yeast would to dough. Having worked alongside many of you here for several years, today feels like I'm speaking before family. Rather than a more formal welcome, please indulge me in taking this opportunity to pause and reflect on the past 2.5 decades and our way forward. Most of you will surely agree with me that we are at a crucial inflection point. At no other time in recent history have we collectively felt the world close in on us as much as it has in the past 3 years. The world has indubitably changed, and it is incumbent upon us to think about what this means for our work as child protection advocates. There's no better prompt than "Ako para sa bata." I am for the child. To my mind, our mission as child protection advocates at this point is twofold. First, it has always been to stand for our children and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Second, it has come to mean something slightly bigger, to celebrate the good that all children have continued to represent during these increasingly uncertain times. The world has changed so much, and yet children perceive everything as though its beauty has remained unbroken. The look that they have the morning after the fever has subsided, the smile of satisfaction that they make after the first full meal that they've had in days, or the delightful chatter that comes with the first time they hold another child's hand to play. These have not changed. Always, they see the world with earnestness and hope undiminished. In our line of work, I consider it a privilege to choose to see the world through the eyes of children. Their capacity to drown the uncertainty of the future with the grace of the present moment is indeed where hope truly springs eternal. We live by our foundress Consuelo Sobel Alger's reminder to give hope where there is none and to renew hope where it has been lost. This guidance has always shaped the work of Consuelo Foundation. During these most uncertain times, we have been able to continue our mission to do little things with great love, foremost because our wellspring of hope is deeper than what we will ever give. Here's to 25 years and more of standing for children and for celebrating the hope that they personify. Bernie has demonstrated the extent of what can be done in our child protection advocacy, and as a genuine ambassador of hope and resilience for children, she paves the way and will continue to pave the way for our community. Congratulations again, Bernie and the child protection community, at magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Doc Yella, for that very inspiring speech and for your unwavering support and partnership with CPN, for fighting and standing up for children's rights. Tama po kayo, dapat tayong lahat para sa bata. And now we move on to the highlight of our morning. But before that, I just got a text from, I just got an information from our sources that there are already 2,000 people watching us live from Facebook. Dumadami pa. Thank you to everyone who are watching us via Zoom or via Facebook. So we now go to the highlight of our event. Since 1958, the Ramon Magsaysay Award has been honoring individuals and organizations, regardless of race, nationality, creed, or gender, who address issues of human development in Asia with courage and creativity, and in doing so have made contributions that have transformed their societies for the better. All Ramon Magsaysay awardees are embodiments of the best of humanity through their inspiring lives and their transformative work. Each of them have offered the world successful solutions to some of our most challenging issues. The Ramon Magsaysay Transformative Leadership Institute's lecture series is their official platform to share their message and their solutions. This lecture is a unique highlight of our celebration of greatness of spirit, where the public is given an opportunity to learn more about the amazing work and the transformative leadership journeys of the Magsaysay awardees in their own words. This morning, we have the pleasure of listening to the lecture of 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid. Bernie has devoted her career to ensure that the problem of child abuse is fully recognized and addressed. She is the head of the PGH Child Protection Unit and the founding executive director of the Child Protection Network Foundation. She is greatly instrumental in the establishment of the PGH CPU, tasked with capacitating and increasing the number of trained child protection specialists and multidisciplinary CPUs in the Philippines, and integrating their work all over the country for a comprehensive approach in facing the challenges of child abuse and neglect every day. Bernie has established several programs and curricula in women and child protection, which is a part of the overall strategy in the creation of women and child protection units nationwide. At the moment, there are now 123 WCPUs in 61 provinces and 10 cities, which have served over 140,000 children and adolescents and over 30,000 women. Ang galing talaga ng CPN. Aside from heading both the UPPGH CPU and the CPN, Bernie is also a professorial lecturer too of the Philippine Judicial Academy of the Supreme Court. Hindi napapagod si Bernie. She is a member of several government committees on health, social welfare, law enforcement, and the judiciary, as well as of several international steering committees, Global Social Service Workforce Alliance, Learning in East Asia and the Pacific, a regional network of no violence in childhood. She is also a reviewer for Child Abuse and Neglect, the International Journal and the Journal of Interpersonal Violence. She's the convener of the Child Abuse, Neglect, and Exploitation, or CANE Study Group of the UPM-NIH. In recognition of CPN's work in this field, Doc Bernie has been made the co-chair of the WHO Guideline Development Group for the response to sexual abuse of children and adolescents and the WHO Guideline Development Group on responding to child maltreatment. Doc Bernie is part of a small group of global violence prevention leaders and experts that has been asked to contribute ideas with regards to trends and solutions likely to reduce and prevent violence against children, with the goal of informing WHO's work as well as UN bodies concerned with violence against children. Woo! Ang daming ginagawa talaga ni Bernie. Ang daming trabaho. Please welcome 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from the Philippines and our keynote speaker and lecturer, Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. After listening to all that, I couldn't believe that Cara was describing me. But I would first like to greet everyone who is here with me physically. You know that you are here because you are special. The Ramon Magsaysay Awards Board, led by Dr. Gigi Montinola, and of course, Ms. Emily Abrera, the Child Protection Network Board. They are also online. The UP Manila officials, headed by my classmate, Vice Chancellor Ewang. And of course, the PGH Director himself, Dr. Gap Legaspi, is here with us. We'd like to take also a special mention of former Dean Amelia Fernandez, who has played a great part on why I took on this job as head of the PGH Child Protection Unit. And all of you who are here, you are our partners. Consuelo is a co-presenter today, and Greg Aubrey is with us, the CEO, aside from Yela, the Managing Director. And of course, UNICEF, our partner through all the Ako Para sa Bata, and with us here later as part of the panel, of course, is Patricia Lim Akin, the Chief of Child Protection of UNICEF. All our partners are here today. You may see your logos on my presentation, even if I don't mention your name. My presentation today will be about what have we done the last 25 years? What have we learned? Did we progress? And where are we going? And who will be going with us? You, what will you be doing with us? I cannot really discuss everything, all the components that I would like to, because I only have 30 minutes. Maybe if you want to spend the day with me, then we can do more. First, everyone online also, I would like to greet you. I know that my relatives from Iloilo, by the way, are listening, so I will have to greet them. I'm Ilongga. That was actually my vision in life, was to work in Iloilo. But it seems like there are other plans. And here I am, a Ramon Magsaysay Awardee because of that. So, let's start. There will be a series of webinars for Ako Para sa Bata. So what I won't be able to discuss today will be discussed in the 8 other webinars after this, up to November 24. So I will just focus on some that I think will be interesting for you.
But look at this from my point of view. I'm a pediatrician, head of the Child Protection Unit at PGH, and head of the Child Protection Network Foundation. So, in a way, my point of view will be from that, view from my side, and maybe, you will see that in terms of perspectives, there should be actually to be healthy and for our country to strengthen our child protection system, we really should look at it from different perspectives if we are to succeed. Okay, so violence against children is really common. In fact, just in the past year, 1 billion children have experienced either physical, sexual, or psychological violence in many parts of the world. And for Asia, you will be very surprised that Asia has the highest prevalence in all the regions of the world. 700 million children, or 64% of the children in Asia, have experienced physical, sexual, or psychological violence in the past year. And the Philippines is, as part of Asia, actually reflects the prevalence of Asia. 66% of Filipino children have experienced physical abuse, 58% psychological abuse, 19% sexual violence. So the prevalence of violence against children in the Philippines is very high. We are right up there on top. And we can say that 3 out of 5 Filipino children have either been physically or psychologically abused or bullied, and 1 in 5 have been sexually violated. Next slide, please. Now, what is also very peculiar, if you look at our statistics, and initially the rest of the world may not have believed it, was that both boys and girls in the Philippines are equally at risk. Some say that it's only girls who are sexually violated, but actually boys may even have a higher prevalence of being victims of sexual violence in our country. And abuse cuts across socio-economic class, so it's not just poverty that causes violence against our children. To say that it's poverty does not capture the problem. Okay. Why should we be concerned? Well, research has shown that adverse childhood experiences in the Philippines, we have done the research here, and in the rest of the world, such as physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and even, for example, death of a parent, really affects brain development. The toxic stress is enough to change the very structure of the brain, such that the effects is deeper than just the skin. It goes through the whole being of the child, such that the consequences are both acute and long-term. And our research had shown that in the Philippines, the top 10 causes of morbidity and mortality, the determinants are probably decades earlier when the adult was a child and has experienced an adverse childhood experience. So you see hypertension, chronic disease, so many psychiatric disorders such as suicide, depression, anxiety. When we look at their performance in school, they do so poorly. You know, their reading ability, even their IQ is lower, their behavior in school, their attention in class are all affected. When you look at the children's behavior, there are so many health risk behavior, such that they abuse alcohol, drugs, smoke very early in life. Risky sex, early initiation of sex, being involved with the law, with children in conflict with the law. And if they are poor, they do not progress. They remain poor. And worst of all, this is passed on to the next generation. And even epigenetics have shown that this adverse experience can put on genes which leads to violence. And that if we do not intervene, then the next generation also suffers. Okay. And when we look at those effects, we see that it cuts across all sectors, from health, education, justice, and social welfare, just to name a few. So when we talk about the child protection system, which we would like to nurture, if we are to prevent all of these consequences that I have just enumerated, this child protection system are the formal and informal structures, functions, and capacities that have been assembled to prevent and respond to violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation of children. Now, what are these components? There are several components. We need a national strategy, a meaningful coordination among all government sectors, strengthening of the social service workforce, but I will discuss and expand later, it's not just the social service workforce. We have to mobilize adequate resources. We need data to find out how we are doing. And of course, local, preventive, and responsive services. And in all of these, we need to change attitudes and practices if we are to be successful. The child has to be in the center of all this, and everything. The difficulty is that it has to be integrated, that all the actions of education, health, welfare, justice, civil society, community, and the family should work in concert to prevent child abuse, exploitation, and other forms of violence to protect and assist these children. So we talk about all of the sectors communicating with each other, having a relationship with each other, and it is these relationships, it is these interactions among these different components that make up the child protection system. But what is the problem? The problem is that these components that we are talking about that should interact and be coordinated really exist as silos. You know, they all have their own bureaucracy, they have their own organizational chart, you know, they have their own budget, which they do not want to share, of course. They have their own manpower, and they cling to all of those. And they do not share with the other sectors. So if we define the system as the interaction, how can there be a system if they're all silos and they do not interact? Okay? So, let us demonstrate now how this system should be functioning and some of the problems that we face with a concrete example of a case. Of course, the name of the child is not Maria, but this is a true case. Okay? So Maria is a 15-year-old brought in by her paternal grandmother for evaluation of physical injuries and physical abuse by a paternal uncle. And Maria's parents were separated since she was 3 years old, and her siblings, or other siblings, half-siblings, were given to paternal relatives. And she was raised by her maternal grandparents and uncle. Her father died of a chronic illness when she was 12, and her mother left to work overseas. you could already see that she's had adverse experience even early on. And Maria became increasingly difficult as she grew up. You know, as we would describe in Filipino, she was a pasaway child. She spent most of her time with her 15-year-old boyfriend. She frequently cuts class, gets involved in gang fights, drinks alcohol, smokes cigarettes, and she often disappears for days, not in the home, and is beaten up by her uncle, who gets angry because she disappears and doesn't come home. So she gets beaten up when she comes home. She's currently in grade 8, a student with average grades. Thankfully, she did not fail. She still had average grades. In fact, Maria can probably do better. She's an intelligent adolescent. During her interview, Maria disclosed that she was also sexually abused by a maternal relative. She was also sexually abused, actually, by 3, a maternal relative, a classmate's father, and her mother's female friend. Okay. And she was already thinking of committing suicide by slashing her wrist. So, what does Maria need? If Maria is now in front of you, she needs so many things. She needs a medical evaluation. She needs treatment of her injuries. You want to know if she has a sexually transmitted infection. She's suicidal, so she needs mental health services. And you want to know where to get these services. And with all her problems in school, you would like the school to be involved also. And you're also thinking at the back of your mind, how could this have been prevented in the first place? And could we file cases against all of these perpetrators, 3 sexual abusers, a physical abuser? You know, should they be arrested? Okay, so many things that Maria needs. So this is the child protection jigsaw. So many pieces of the puzzle that you need to put together for this one child, Maria. Okay? So what did the PGH-CPU do? Okay? PGH-CPU put the pieces of this puzzle together. So we have physicians, social workers, psychiatrists and psychologists, nurses, police, and a lawyer, all working together under one roof. This is the team, okay? The PGH-CPU multidisciplinary team, which celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. So then, with this team, what can you do? Then this team can provide that medical evaluation and treatment that Maria needed, okay? That psychiatric evaluation that she needed. And obviously, because she was suicidal, she needed to be admitted. So the team had to work with the Department of Psychiatry and also the medical social service that is in the hospital. There were so many multidisciplinary case conferences called for Maria because there were decisions that need to be made. She was confined in that psychiatric ward for 4 months. But where will she go home? Who will take care of her? What is her home environment like? We needed to work with the city social worker, also to do home visits and assess the family, relatives, both on the mother and paternal side, assess whether she can go home there or we needed to do something with that home where she is, and how can the mother who is overseas, you know, be helpful to Maria's case? And how about the barangay? You know, actually the barangay was very helpful. You know, PGH ward is an open ward. You need a watcher. It was the barangay who provided that watcher for Maria. And when Maria goes home, the barangay, which is right near there, can also help in the monitoring of how Maria is doing. Can a case be filed? The police were also called. in the case conference? Can the case be filed against all of those perpetrators? Maria absolutely was not ready for any case to be filed. The relatives were not ready either because one of the perpetrators, well, two of the perpetrators were relatives. So that's a common problem of the cases where family members are most often the perpetrators. No one wants to file a case. And in Philippine law, there has to be a complainant. Even though this is a public case, it should be people of the Philippines versus still a complainant needs to be there. So the burden is on the child, really most of the time, to be the complainant. And that is another burden on top of all the other problems that Marie has. So you could see all of these different groups, okay, aside from the team that needed to be together and coordinates its action to be able to help Maria. Okay, next slide. Well, because this group worked together and they looked at all the different needs that Maria had really to have implemented so that we will be successful in Maria being able to go home and to go back to school, we needed all of those, the members of the team, and all of the other sectors in the community, the social welfare office, the barangay, the school, to be able to help Maria. And this was a successful case. Maria was discharged. She was able to go home. She worked with her maternal grandmother. She is in touch with her mother overseas with video chat. She's back in school. She's doing well in school, but still undergoing therapy. This will take a long time. You know, therapy is not just for a few months. Maria will need a long therapy. Still, no case has been filed, the perpetrators. So I'm very happy that we're signing this memorandum of agreement with IBP. The case is not over. The work is in progress. When we talk about cases in child protection, these are not just 1 week, 1 month case. This takes years. Sometimes I had a patient I saw when she was 3, and she was still our patient up to the time she was in college. And we even provided, with the help, of course, one of our donors, were able to provide educational assistance until she graduated from college. So our involvement is in years. We probably have patients who are also celebrating their 25th year with us. Okay? So that's how long it takes. Okay? And so many people working with this child to nurture the child if the family is not able to do that well. Okay. So, we found out after our first 5 years that one child protection unit at PGH is not enough. The Philippines has 100 million population, 40% of which are children. 40 million children. How many child protection units do you need? Of course, we would like that they will not need a child protection unit. That is what you would want to do first of all, but we can talk about that in a little while. But with the Department of Health administrative order, then all government hospitals really must have a women and children protection unit. A women, you're asking, why is there women now? Because we recognized early on that violence against women and violence against children are interlinked and intertwined. Okay, a child that we see abuse, the mom is probably also either a victim of domestic violence or a victim of child abuse herself when she was a young child. And the risk and protective factors also overlapped, and so many of the preventive actions that need to be done also overlap. And when we talk about adolescents, they're right there in the middle, both a child and going into adulthood. Okay. Next slide, please. But when we tried to put these pieces together and replicate this program in other provinces, we find that not all of the pieces are there. And that to be able for a province to have a women and children protection unit, there are stages or phases depending on resource. So we had level 1, level 2, level 3 women and children protection units, depending on most of the time whether they have a mental health provider. The Philippines has a very big problem in terms of access to mental health care. There are just so few psychologists and psychiatrists. That's why, as a temporary basis, we have to look for other sources for mental health, such as such as training social workers to also be able to deliver mental health services. So most of our women and children protection units are level 2. So that means there is a doctor, a social worker, and a police officer. But less than half, only 30% of the WCPUs have a mental health provider. And if Maria went there, how would she have fared when she needed a mental health provider? Okay. So working with DOH, with the local government units, and with so many partners, that we now have 123 women and children protection units in 61 provinces and 10 independent cities. We still have 20 to go. Okay, and we're going to go after those 20. They can do it. We know they can. We are there. You know, we are all there to help them. Okay. Next slide, please. So what we need is a capacitated women and children workforce. While when we describe the child protection system as one component is strengthening the social service workforce, in our experience, the lessons we have learned in the last 25 years is that we need more than just the social service workforce. We need to capacitate the health workforce. We need to capacitate the legal workforce. We need to capacitate the education workforce if we want to be successful. And what we have learned also this past year is that if only one workforce fails, we will all fail, you see. That's the problem. We cannot be proud and say, oh, you know, here in health we are perfect. Of course, we're not. But we cannot say, here we're perfect. Never mind what happens to your workforce, but here we're perfect. No matter how perfect we are, if the other workforce are not doing their work and they are not competent and capacitated, we will fail. That is what is so difficult about this work, because we either succeed together or we fail together. So medicine, for example, this is just an example of how this capacitation will take place. Okay, so for medicine, we have advanced in this past 25 years. We now know that we cannot concentrate only on those who are there already working in the field of child and women and children protection. We have to start them early. So even the undergraduate medical curriculum now includes women and children protection. And once they go into their post-residency residency training, like in obstetrics and in pediatrics, then the residency training program should include women and children protection. And that is what has happened, because there are champions in those specialty societies now who have taken on the cudgels in training with the women and children protection workforce. So the residencies, both in pediatrics and obstetrics, include women and children protection. But we need more than that, because once they work in the women and children protection units, they need specialty training because there are competencies that they need to learn. Why do you think people listen to us? It's because they know we know what we do, that we are experts in what we do. You know, so there are certain skills that need to be learned. This is not automatic. If you go to this field, like in any field, you know, you have to learn the skills necessary. And for women and children, you have to train with a team. As we said, it's not just one discipline here. So you need to know how to work with a team, okay? The same with social work, okay? So with social work also, social work needs to have, in the undergraduate social work, can you go one slide? Okay. They need to include also women and children protection in the undergraduate BS social work. And once they are in the field, they need generalized in-service training wherever that social worker is, even if that social worker is not in women and children protection. They still need to learn basic foundational skills for women and children protection. And once they are now in women and children protection work, then they need further skills. So it's a ladder type curriculum. And for social work, because we lack mental health professionals, we now see another step for them, a specialized training to do therapy. In the Philippines, we have the trauma-informed psychosocial processing, which is an adaptation of an evidence-based cognitive therapy with a with a trauma focus, okay? So this ladderized training ensures that at any point, you know, you will be able to expand the workforce to be able to meet the needs of millions of children. Remember, we're not talking even of a few thousands. We're talking about millions of Filipino children. Because of the pandemic, we actually were able to do some good things, and that is develop online training programs. And this makes it easier for our training to reach more of the workforce because they can do the first part of their trainings online before they need to do their practicum in the end. And we're offering this for free, the Child Protection Network, of course, in partnership with UP Manila, UNFPA, and ICTSI. Oops. Okay, training can do other things, okay? Aside from just building skills, we have discovered that training can also change norms and practices. One of the major lessons we've learned the past 25 years is that the messenger is as important as the message. Okay? For example, you know, we for a long time didn't know how to persuade doctors to change practice that is traumatic to children and adolescents when they perform the medical legal exam. But when the Supreme Court in a decision said that those exams should not be done, then all the doctors finally listened. Okay, so it did not come from medicine, it came from the Supreme Court. Okay, but because the medical legal certificate, the final acceptor, the user of that is the court, then it comes under the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court actually was able to change a medical practice. That's how valuable, I said, the messenger is just as valuable as the message. And The competency enhancement training for family court judges in handling cases involving children is really a milestone for our country. And this training was evaluated. And this training was shown to be successful in making our courts child and gender sensitive. So it was an example actually for the rest of the world, not only the Philippines. And the trainers here are multidisciplinary. So again, the message. So yes, we have judges and justices as trainers, but we also have doctors and social workers and psychologists and psychiatrists who were part of the training team. So this is an example also, this set training of the Supreme Court Philippine Judicial Academy is an example on how lived experience, research, and the messenger are successful in changing norms and practices. How so? We have noticed among our patients that so many do not want to file cases. Maria is just one example. We also notice that many of our patients, even if the case are filed, somewhere along the way, they deceased. So the case, is dismissed because of desistance. So one research on the legal outcomes of the sexual abuse cases seen at PGH-CPU, done actually by Dr. Yela Castillo, which showed that medical findings are very important in terms of whether a case reaches court or not. The probability that it will reach court is very high, doubles, if there are medical findings. The problem is that in 90% of cases, there are no medical findings. Even if sexual abuse happened, there was no medical findings. So if the basis for reaching court is medical findings, then 90% of cases will not reach court. So with that, our lived experience, with this research presented to the Philippine Judicial Academy Research Committee, that became one of the bases for the curriculum of the competency enhancement training for family court judges and court personnel, dealing with this desistance and the not understanding medical findings. But of course, there were other things, like how do you interview the child? What are the questions asked of the child in court? So, I'm sure Dr. Tess Herbosa recognizes herself here with the attorney Sig Fortune. This is the battle of the titans. If you just look at this picture, one as a defender and one as a prosecutor. But this is actually a trigger video of that competency enhancement training, showing the behavior of the different personnel in court that traumatizes the child. And I cannot mention the competency enhancement training without mentioning the name of the first chancellor of the Philippine Judicial Academy, Justice Amorfina Melencio Herrera, who was also Chair Emeritus of the Child Protection Network Foundation. The first chancellor of PhilJA was way ahead of her time. And it was through her that the competency enhancement training was established. And it was through her that we credit all of these changes that we're seeing now in the family courts. So what is good about this set also was that there is a lot of small group discussions and interactions among the participants. Again, lived experience with expertise is what changes practice. Okay. But the way that we do our work, okay, we go as medical legal examiners, workers in the Women and Children Protection Units, we go to court a lot of time. And this serves as a natural feedback mechanism to find out really whether that set training is successful or not. Every day, this is a natural feedback mechanism because all the WCPU doctors who testify in court can observe firsthand whether the court is child-friendly or not. And I receive so many texts, and we give immediate feedback to the courts. And we also know, because we sit down in court, how the child is treated as a witness in court, whether the questions being asked of the child really are child-friendly or traumatic to the child. Okay. The good news, the last 25 years, is that violence can be prevented. In fact, INSPIRE is an acronym of the 7 strategies that have been shown to work and prevent violence against children. These programs have been scientifically evaluated, they have been found to be effective, and they are based on the best available research rather than personal belief or anecdotal evidence. Because anecdotal evidence can even be harmful, because what you think may be good for the child actually may do harm. So many teen pregnancy prevention programs that on good evaluation has been shown not to decrease teenage pregnancy, but actually increase teenage pregnancy. And we are not far behind because the Philippines adopted the Parenting for Lifelong Health program led by Ateneo and all of the other partner universities around the world with Child Protection Network and the Department of Social Welfare and Development. We were able to show that a good evidence-based parenting program can reduce child maltreatment, can prevent child maltreatment. And with our Safe Schools research with the Department of Education, we were able to show that sexual abuse of adolescents can be prevented. Okay? So the children need not suffer abuse. So it's very important that we gather data because we should know whether what we're doing is making an impact. Is it reducing child abuse in our country or not? Obviously, we have a very high prevalence. So how do we know that we are making a dent on that high prevalence? We need data. The Child Protection Network was able actually to enable all the WCPUs, to use a database that they can track their cases. And we're also able to supply our country with data in terms of reported cases to the WCPUs. But that is not enough. We need to decide with health, social welfare, justice, and education at the very least on what are the indicators we should be tracking with a harmonized database so that we are able to say with confidence whether what we are doing is really making an impact on the children that we serve. The Philippines is actually an example for the rest of the world. Valenzuela City is the first pathfinding city to end violence against children, and Valenzuela City adopted INSPIRE evidence-based programs to be able to see if the city can reduce violence against children citywide. So other cities can do the same. Really, what we need to do is what we call the Bibingka approach, made popular by former President Fidel Ramos, working from on top and also coming up from the bottom. So we should do a top-down and a bottoms-up approach if we are going to strengthen our child protection system in the country. And the Child Protection Network is actually an example of that. Looking at the different components of the child protection system, through the years, what we did was, what are the things that needs to be done? Which of these things we have control over? That means we can do it ourselves. Which of these things we can just facilitate? And which of these things should we just advocate? Because no one organization can do everything. No one government agency can do everything. As I have emphasized from the beginning, we are all working together, okay? So that we have to decide what are the pieces, that we are going to work on, and what are the pieces that we will help others work on, okay? So, to achieve collective impact, we all need to go in one direction, okay? We have to have one vision. And actually, there is a national vision. And that is the Philippine Plan of Action Against Violence Against Children. And the lead agency here is the Council for the Welfare of Children, but all sectors, all government agencies, NGOs, FBOs, academe, should be part of this plan and strategy, and we should all be working together. Yes, we need political commitment. We cannot do without that. But what we have also learned in the past 25 years, we have worked with 5 administrations, okay? So this political commitment needs to be repeated every time, so that we cannot depend on government alone, because that political commitment changes for every administration. There is always, everything is erased and everything new every time. So it is up to us, actually non-government, to make sure that there is this political commitment. We need to communicate with each other so that we should know how we are all moving in lockstep in one direction. We need to build partnerships. If you saw my slide, not even all the partners are there. We could never have achieved what we had without our partners. So partnerships are critical. We need monitoring and we need data to do that. The Philippines does not really have good data, but that's the only way we can tell whether we're doing the right things or not. We have the technical package, it's there, but we cannot be a country of pilot programs forever. We should be able to scale up all those with evidence that it works if we want to make that impact. Pilot projects do not make an impact, okay? So I would like to end, okay? It's been 25 years, and it all began because of one young man, a Fulbright scholar, who came to the Philippines and fell in love with the Filipino people. His name is David Bradley, and he is still with us today. And he leads an excellent board that works quietly but effectively. Greatness of spirit comes in many forms, and I am blessed to work with this every day. And our children deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very much, Doc Bernie. It is so inspiring how you have built from the ground up a multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary effort in child protection in the Philippines and Asia that has been a model for many countries. It truly proves why you deserve to receive the Ramon Magsaysay Award. Sana, Doc Bernie, marami pa kayong Maria na matulungan. And at this point, we'd like to take this time to hear from a victim survivor of abuse and also a child advocate. Pamela Marie Godoy shares her own experience with us. Let's watch this.
My heartfelt congratulations, Dr. Bernie Madrid, for being a recipient of the Ramon Magsaysay Award. It is a well-deserved recognition. It is a testament to your commitment to ensure that every child grows up in a safe, secure, and nurturing environment, free from all forms of violence. The first person a survivor discloses their experience of abuse can set the tone for their entire healing journey. How the person reacts to their disclosure can have a significant influence on how they make sense of the violation that has happened to them, and whether they will make or they will take the next steps to seek support. That first person may be a family member, a friend, a teacher, a social worker, or a doctor. When I was experiencing sexual abuse between the ages of 8 and 9, I wished there was a Dr. Bernie Madrid who was there to provide a lifeline out of the darkness that I was experiencing. I hoped there was a child protection unit where I could seek immediate support and where I could have heard the words, "We believe you, and it was not your fault." But these avenues of care and support, unfortunately, were not available to me. Looking back, there were no caring adults around me who recognized the red flags of the abuse. When I eventually had the courage to disclose to my mother, she was ill-equipped to understand the gravity of the situation. The incidents of abuse told me explicitly and implicitly that I was unworthy and unlovable. As a result, my adolescent and adult life were tainted by the sexual violation that I experienced. It impacted my ability to set healthy boundaries in my relationships. I looked for love in all the wrong places. I got pregnant at the age of 17. Later on, I realized that teenage pregnancy risk is strongly linked to history of sexual abuse, especially for someone like me who experienced sexual abuse both within and outside the family. You would think that being a technical specialist on violence against women and children, I would have figured out how to heal from these traumatic experiences. But the pathway to my healing and recovery was long and convoluted. Due to the lack of protective actions and without access to timely mental health and psychosocial support, I was not able to process early on the violation perpetrated against me. The abuse seeped into the deepest crevices of my heart and mind and fundamentally changed how I perceive myself and my worth. In the 2017 Ako Para sa Bata conference, where I shared for the first time my experience of childhood sexual abuse, I highlighted that for the longest time, I just had a head knowledge that perhaps my life was negatively impacted by the sexual abuse, but there was no real recognition of the connection between the trauma of the sexual abuse and the disempowered decisions I made with regard to my body, my sexuality, and my intimate relationships. This is why I am so grateful that I was able to participate in a healing and recovery program organized by our church, the Christ Commission Fellowship, or CCF, in 2016. That program is called Glorious Hope, and we met every Saturday afternoon for a period of 6 months. There was a dedicated life coach for our group of about 10 women who were struggling with various concerns. Some of them were also survivors of sexual violence like me. There were discussions and assignments that were carefully designed to help us explore and unravel the experiences that negatively impacted our lives. The program helped me find my way in overcoming years of guilt and shame. I experienced firsthand what others were telling me, that when we surrender the broken pieces of our lives into the hands of God, then He can heal us in ways we never thought was possible. We know that survivors heal and recover in the context of relationships with caring and supportive family members, including frontline service providers, like what we have in our Women and Children Protection Units, doctors, social workers, police officers. They not only provide physical safety, but more importantly, psychological safety, especially when the wider community would engage in victim blaming and shaming. They provide a circle of support that survivors can rely upon as they process the violation they experience and undertake the long journey towards healing. Thank you, Dr. Madrid. Thank you to all our social workers, doctors, police officers, lawyers, and community volunteers for continuing the work to create a stronger circle of support for survivors.
Thank you, Pam, for your courage. Too many are still subjected to abuse, and Pam has made a lifelong commitment to advocating for child rights and child protection. Pam used to work with PGH CPU for her social work internship, where she strengthened her skills on the provision of case management and psychosocial support to children and adolescent survivors of sexual violence in a multidisciplinary setting with doctors, social workers, and police officers. Pam is now based in Geneva, Switzerland, working in UNICEF as a gender-based violence in emergencies specialist. Thank you, Pam. Let's now move on to a very significant part of our program, our panel discussion, where we promised to you a very thoughtful dialogue. We invited several individuals who are in leagues of their own when it comes to child rights and child protection. May we call back on stage Doc Bernie and Ramon Magsaysay Awards Foundation trustee Emily Abrera, who will be our moderator. Joining them in the panel is Patricia Lim Aken, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF Philippines. Pat joined UNICEF Philippines as a Chief of Child Protection in January 2022. Pat has over 18 years of experience in the international development sector in leadership, project management, knowledge generation, policy and programming, advocacy, and strategic planning. Previously, Pat was Chief of Child Protection in Rwanda for 5 years and has also worked with UNICEF and other organizations in Mozambique, Afghanistan, Nepal, Guyana, Barbados, New York, and Tanzania. Our next panelist is joining us virtually over at Zoom. Joining Pat, Doc Bernie, and Emily is 2003 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from India, Dr. Shanta Sinha. Dr. Sinha is known for her pioneering work on children's rights and is recognized as India's foremost child rights activist, being the founder secretary of the MV Foundation, a rights-based grassroots-level NGO operating out of Hyderabad, India, which has withdrawn over 1 million children from child labor and put them into schools. Recognizing her unparalleled contribution to the total abolition of child labor in nearly 1,200 villages, and for her persistent efforts to understand and help the young minds, she has been appointed first chairperson of the NCPCR, or the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, by the Government of India. Let us all welcome, all the way from India, 2003 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Shanta Sinha. Take it away, Ma'am Emily. You have the floor.
Okay. Well, that was an avalanche of information, both heart-wrenching and at the same time challenging. We'd like to start off perhaps a discussion with a couple of questions. Juna, where's Cara? Have you disappeared? Yeah. Perhaps among among the smaller group.
Yeah, we actually have questions already because people have been commenting on Zoom. So anyway, for those who have questions from Zoom, our Zoom audience is invited to submit questions via the chat feature or the Q&A box, and people joining us on Facebook can submit their questions via the comments section. And for our audience here at the Ramon Magsaysay Hall, you can just call the usher's attention and the microphone will be provided. Or there's a microphone stand here in the center. You can just approach the microphone. Yes, Miss Emily, we already have a question from one of our participants, one of our viewers. This is for Dr. Bernie and the UNICEF panelists. Has there been an effort by CPN or by UNICEF to replicate the CPN model in protecting women and children in other Asian countries? And what happened to these programs, and what are the challenges that you encountered?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we have experience in establishing child protection units in other countries. The first would have been in Pakistan, in Lahore, and in Peshawar. Part of their training, they did the blended learning, so part of their training was online, and then they went to the Philippines for their practicum part, and up to now, we visited them in Lahore at least, and they were successful in establishing it there. I think that the problem would be in scaling up, So I find that replication, small pilot replications are doable, but always the problem is scale up.
Would you like to add to that, Ms. Pat?
Thank you. Maybe just to add that yes, in different countries, UNICEF has also been supporting this model. Sometimes it's called a one-stop center. It can be under several names where you have multidisciplinary teams working on child abuse and child protection. I completely agree with Bernie that actually the scale-up is an issue, and what you mentioned earlier in terms of some of the factors that contribute to scale up, like government commitment, for example, different partnerships, coordination, are all very important factors to the success of these models. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Emily.
Yes, a question. Based on your studies, boys are equally at risk, if not so, same as girls. And that was uncovered in one of our own surveys here. How does one encourage boys to disclose the abuse they experience? It's a tough one culturally here.
Yes, there are many factors, first of all, why boys do not disclose. One is that our cultural belief that you have to be macho. So macho comes in many interpretations. Is that one, if the offender is a woman, you were not abused. You should have enjoyed it because you are male, so that's the macho thinking. When in fact, even if the boy thinks that it's not abuse because of these macho thoughts, the effects are still there. It's still as if they have been abused. And then second, if the offender was male, then the boy thinks that, oh no, maybe I'm now gay because the offender was male. So I should not tell. And I had a patient who was male, disclosed, and the father was so ashamed that his boy it was the father who caused the boy to desist from testifying in court. Okay. So we need to change the norms on how we accept, first of all, disclosures of these boys. and that for us to accept that boys can also be sexually abused.
Yeah. And there's also, I mean, additionally, simply physical abuse, which is considered sort of initiation to manhood.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to complain. You accept it because that's how it is to be a man. So culturally, there are all of these little nuances that also get in the way, right? I don't know how far we see into the future that these will change or shift or...
We need a lot of changing norms strategies, you know, to be able to have the boys report. And we have to train those who now, especially those whom the boy will disclose to be able to help that boy, not to be shocked, not to be angry, not to be ashamed. In fact, our Safe Schools project, one part of that was how do classmates and friends help their classmates and friends who may disclose. Because we found also in our national baseline survey that when children disclose, actually they don't disclose to adults. They disclose to friends most of the time.
That's right.
So we need also to be able to train friends on how to accept and help them with this disclosure.
Right. Dr. Sinha, Shanta Sinha, perhaps we can get some inputs from you in the context of India and the work you've been doing there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me first of all say that it was an inspiring talk, and there are many things that were common, I should say, between what is being attempted. I like the focus on the multidisciplinary aspect, and I think that's very, very important. You know, we will have to sort of train everyone, which is what Bunny had talked about so well. But what I liked most was that this is not a commercial program. It requires experts, it requires professional training. Most often one thinks that if you work on children, anybody can do it. It's not like that. And I think that emphasis on expertise, on training was so important. The other thing that I really liked about what she said is working with the system and the challenges of working with the system. They keep changing all the time. New bureaucrats come, new politicians come. We can't.
Okay, shall we give a couple of seconds to see if we can get our sound back on from Dr. Sinha? Shanta, we've lost you. While we're waiting, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Secretary Erwin Tulfo of the DSWD. Welcome, sir. So here we have a really good example of the multidisciplinary engagement happening right here. Terrific. Shall we go back to Dr. Sinha when we've got the technical glitch fixed? Okay. We are ready to I think we're also frozen here. Okay. Pat, did you have any other comments to make, please?
I
can hear from you. Yes.
So I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate Bernie again. A wonderful and truly deserved recognition of all the hard work and the collective work of everybody. And I also wanted to say that, honestly, it's such an honor to be here as a panelist amongst all of these child protection champions in the room and online. Your lecture was really music to my ears. As UNICEF, so many thought-provoking issues that you touched on are issues that we deal with also on a daily basis. And of course, we are very, very strong proponents of a child protection systems approach. I wondered if I could just take a few minutes to highlight some areas that you talked about. First of all, when we talk about a child protection system made up of these different components that you mentioned, we do need to acknowledge that here in the Philippines, all of those components do exist. So we're quite fortunate. The issue is the advancement of these different components. It's been inconsistent. So, for example, the component on laws and policies is advanced. Even only this year, there's been a number of very important laws that have been passed on child protection, which has been really fantastic, on the minimum age of statutory rape, on online sexual abuse and exploitation, on the prohibition of child marriage, just to name a few. But my big question remains about the implementation of these laws and the impact of these laws on children. And I think this kind of speaks as well to some of the components of the child protection system perhaps being a little bit weaker than others, I would say. It's something I'd be interested to hear about. I also believe that the child protection system is supposed to address both the prevention and the response of violence against children. However, I sometimes feel like the focus is much more on the response side of things, whereas the prevention of violence against children deserves greater attention and investment. And I think one of the reasons is also that one of the greatest drivers of violence remains our own perceptions and behaviors towards it. It's the norms and behaviors component that you spoke to. One of the things that really alarmed me about the baseline study on violence is that as a society, we appear to have accepted alarmingly high levels of violence and potentially instilling in children this acceptance as well. The baseline study revealed that 57% of children said that their experience of violence made them, quote, more resilient and strong. I was quite concerned hearing that, because it shows to a large extent violence has been normalized. And when violence is normalized, or when children or adults don't think it's a problem, we're less likely to prevent it, less likely to disclose it, and less likely to actually get help for it. And this type of finding is validated because when we look at reporting data, it's extremely low. So the same baseline study showed that only 11.9% of children and young people who experienced sexual violence actually disclosed it. And we're seeing this repeated in a number of different studies. You know, high levels of violence, very low levels of reporting. And the big question is really, what does it mean? What does it mean for us, and what do we need to do? And I really think that this speaks to the fact that we need to focus more on prevention. We need to invest more time, money, and effort in strengthening the child protection system and also in addressing social norms. And maybe I can take the opportunity, because I remember at the beginning of the lecture, you asked what are partners doing, you know, how can we commit and contribute to this, just to share a little bit on what we're doing as UNICEF Philippines. We do work with a wide range of partners around child protection, CSO academia, government partners, private sector. We work at policy level, we work to operationalize systems, we work to address social norms. And one of the things we're doing right now is supporting a child protection systems assessment. It's a little bit of a diagnostic on the status of different components of the system, and it will hopefully pinpoint areas that are posing challenges and allow us and other stakeholders to be able to focus in on those areas that require more attention. We're also working with the Child Protection Network to establish the innovative tele-CPUs. I'm not just highlighting it because you're here, Bernie, But really, there is a need to bring services closer to children and families who need them. And this will also encourage more people to actually seek services if they're more accessible. Together, CPN and UNICEF have already established 85 tele-CPUs in the whole country. And I really believed that this model has more untapped potential. We're also implementing the Safer Kids PH program through a consortium composed of UNICEF, Save the Children, the Asia Foundation, and funded by the Australian government, which is focusing on reducing online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, which is obviously a massive problem here in the Philippines and across the world. And one of the key components is addressing social norms. For example, increasing protected behavior of children when navigating the cyberspace. We're working with government, the Council for the Welfare of Children, I know they're here today, to operationalize the advocacy and communication strategy attached to the Philippine Plan of Action to End Violence Against Children. And this also came as a recognition that we need to focus special attention on utilizing a social and behavior change lens to address negative norms. And in particular, the process engages children themselves, and this is particularly important, making sure that children themselves can understand how to respond and to prevent violence, and also how to advocate for what they want for their futures. All of our work really seeks to strengthen the child protection system and looking at ways in which these components of the system can be more present and stronger at the lowest levels closest to children and family. And really, to your question in terms of, what partners are with us going forward, I just really want to say that systems building, it's long-term. Social norms, it's also long-term. But you can be assured that UNICEF is also there for the long term, and we're really committed to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Kara, we might have... we've got Shanta back on.
Oh, okay. So let's hear from Dr. Sinha first, and then
Dr.
after
Sinha,
that, we'll
you want
read the
to complete,
questions from Zoom.
the remarks you were making earlier.
I'm so sorry. There was the net just failed. I'm very sorry about this. But I think what is important is actually what Dr. Bernadette had mentioned.
Okay, our team will be...
In terms of any violence of children. I also feel that it is important to listen to the voices of children, prepare them. And when I heard Pamela speak, I was really amazed at the agency that she exercised. I think finally, ultimately, it is the agency of children, their courage, their ability to voice, and their ability to go through the entire process of adjudication that gives you strength, that gives us strength to take this forward. I think we will have to really commend what children express, what children are able to talk about, and we will have to create an atmosphere where children can really open up and tell their stories to us without fear. Because the strength finally for us comes from children and their voices. I mean, their subjective experiences would move us to do more. I also think that the fact that Dr. Bernadette talked about is not giving up on any person who's made a complaint, on cases, taking them to the logical conclusion. It could take months, it could take years, but it's so important to see that justice is done to them. Finally, it is a question of justice. Is it fair for children to be dealt with the way they are? Is it fair for them to be subject to violence? Is it fair for there being such unequal power relationship between adult and the child? We will have to all come together to see that children enjoy their childhood. And it is their right. The protection is a right of the child. They will have to be taken into consideration as the prime pride factors for our nation and for our culture. Unless we do that, I think we will not be able to change. social norms, which again Dr. Bernadette talked about, are so important to prepare everybody in the society. And in that, again, schools become such an important medium to change the mindsets, where children are able to talk, to share, and where we are able to create an atmosphere where children are able to talk and share what they are going through in terms of violence, not just in schools, but at home, in public spaces, the gender aspects of it, the sexuality aspects of it. I think we will have to start from schools. And this has been shown in many, many countries where children from the primary classes onwards are being trained to express and to share with their peer groups. So these are some of the important learnings that I have got from Dr. Bernadette. But where do we begin? I mean, in her experience, it is a hospital. I should say that we should begin wherever institutions are ready, and it is a child that will bring us together. An important aspect of coordination is that the child trains all of us to come together to help the child. And we feel that coordination cannot happen in a vacuum. It's not an abstract concept, it's a concrete reality of everybody coming together in the best interest of the child to see that there are solutions to what children actually need. I should think of a day where there is no need for coordination, there is no need for child protection institutions, there is no need for budgets for this, where children are the center stage of all moral and ethical considerations in the country and globally. And this is the only way that peace can be attained everywhere. So I do hope that we see a day where children become the center stage, as again Dr. Bernadette has says, just so that we get peace everywhere. And I have nothing more to offer at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We have a question from one of our viewers on Facebook. The question goes, what should we do if a mother and victim survivor of incest by the father doesn't want to file a case due to shame? What is the role of social welfare?
That's really a very common situation, and one that everyone understands, that the family, especially if the father is the breadwinner, that they would not want to file the case. And lots of times, I've asked myself and friends, what is justice? You know, because if the family does not want, should society file the case? And I don't know if Dean Candelaria is still here from Philippine Judicial Academy, because he's one of those that I was asking this question. And Dean, I will give your answer to me because it made me think. And his answer was, justice is not just about individuals. Justice also concerns society. So if that is the case, then for me, what is the role of the social work? If we look at our law, RA 7610, those who can file the case instead of a child are many. It could be a social worker, you know, it could be the barangay, but there has to be a system for us on how we will do this, you know. But just straight off, the social worker can file the case.
Mm-hmm. But how will that affect the child, the mental state of the child?
Yes, that's the difficulty, you know.
Because sometimes they blame themselves for what happens to
I
their
always
parents,
would
right?
base it also on the child. You know, is the child ready? Because we have had children who became suicidal because they were not ready. Yes.
Thank you, Doc Bernie.
So it's a very difficult and challenging topic to discuss. And I don't know if we will be able to exhaust even just the top lines here today. But we've touched on a number of things, and from the beginning, we heard these staggering figures from Dr. Bernie. In the world, 1 billion in the past year, Asia being the highest in the world, and the Philippines being probably the highest in Asia, where we know that from studies that have been conducted, we do know that violence exists. Over half of these children were physically abused, emotionally abused, or bullied. And that's a huge number. So Dr. Bernie also has touched on the fact that it takes a village, of course, as always. It takes a country, and it takes all these elements: human resources, finance, laws and policies, governance, and so on and so forth. And children, communities, schools to work together if we're going to have any kind of progress on this. Pat here has pointed out that the progress has been sort of spotty. And her point of view has been, perhaps we have to shift a little bit and ensure that we are putting enough resources against the prevention. And when we listen to Dr. Shanta Sinha, she has also pointed out that schools have a huge role to play. Education, the curriculum, how do we deal with this? How do we teach children to be able to not just deal with it, to be able to speak out, to be able to express. Again, we return to Bernie, and she also says, this has a lot to do with, of course, there are social norms, there are cultural nuances that we have to deal with, and each country has to figure that one out, I think, for themselves. There are many commonalities, but there are also many unique aspects. Dr. Madrid was very big on training. And I think this probably encompasses all aspects of how to deal with the protection of children. It was funny because Dr. Yella, when she gave her remarks, said we should try to see the world through the eyes of children, happy children. But before we can do that, we have to see the world through the eyes of children who have been the victims of violence. And I think that's what Dr. Bernie has done for the past 25 years, what Pat here through the UNICEF has been doing, what Shanta Sinha does in India in terms of child rights protection. And that finally, I guess, as Dr. Sinha said, it is the child that will bring us together in this fight to bring about peace in the world. Eventually, when the child is whole, society is whole and healthy. Okay?
Thank you very much, Emily, for that very powerful closing to our panel discussion and open forum. And thank you to our panel for keeping the advocacy alive through our discussion. Before we proceed to the next part of the program, we need a photo opportunity. So we'd like to call on Doc Bernie, Ma'am Emily, and Miss Pat. We're taking the photo now? Sitting down? All right. Three, two, one. All right, thank you. Standing up. Thank you very much, Doc Bernie, Miss Patricia, and Ma'am Emily. Thank you very much. All right. Now, from one noble cause to another, we would also like to kickstart the annual conference organized by the Child Protection Network Foundation, the Ako Para sa Bata Conference, in celebration of the 25th founding anniversary of the Child Protection Unit at the Philippine General Hospital. The theme of the 14th Ako Para sa Bata Annual Conference is 25 years. Ayan, 25 years, the beginning, the building, and the institution of child protection in the Philippines. To talk more about this conference, we'd like to call on one of the conference chairs for the 14th Ako Para sa Bata and the Associate Director of the Child Protection Network. Let's all welcome Dr. Stella Manalo.
Okay. Okay. Good noon to everyone. It's already noon time after. It's our lunch time. Well, as the chair of the 14th Ako Para sa Bata conference, I was tasked to promote the series of webinars that we are having in the next few weeks. Now, this is a unique opening, and we'd like to thank the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation for this unique opening, and we were really panicking how we would open the conference. And Bernie, and in the words of Bernie, nothing happens by chance. Everything is by plan. So this is really an apt and celebration of our 25 years. Okay. Okay. So starting today, every Thursday at 10 a.m., tune in and join our webinar by Zoom or Facebook. Bernie did say that there were many things she still had to say. So we're going to be putting her pearls of wisdom in each webinar because she couldn't cover it in 30 minutes. And congratulations, Bernie. You always, you never fail to awe and inspire. And the difficult part in her lecture is really shortening it. Listening to her lecture, I realized that we have done so much in the past 25 years. And we're so fortunate to be led by Bernie. We've known each other for more than 25 years. And I'm so fortunate, and I think our other team members can attest to the fact that we bask in her guiding light. And she is a great boss. You know, she's a hardworking person. And when we fall, she's there to pick us up. And who better to attest to that greatness of spirit but the people who work with her. Okay, so Bernie, congrats. And we have my co-chairs are also my colleagues. We have been there from the start. So we saw our old pictures there. So Dr. Norieta Balderrama, our psychiatrist, she's been there from the start, co-chair. And also, Dr. Mariela Castillo. She was the first hire, I think, of Bernie at the start of the Child Protection Unit. And we're still connected, and we're still working together. And many in our team are still together. So it's really hard to disconnect from Bernie. Okay. So the objective of our conference is using the framework of the care continuum in child protection and the lessons learned from the past 25 years, we create our roadmap for the future to bridge the identified gaps, as Bernie presented in her lecture, and further strengthen the systems for child protection in the Philippines. Specifically, we have just 3 objectives: to review the gains made and challenges overcome in child protection in the Philippines in the last 25 years, identify the present best practices in the field, and create concrete action plans and outcome parameters to build a stronger child protection system in the Philippines. The next slide. Okay, so it's a busy slide. It shows you the theme on the left side, which is the components of our child protection system with the action points. And on the right is the catchy title. Okay, we put it in Tagalog. So today we had Nurturing a Better Tomorrow, Strengthening the Child Protection System. Next week, on October 6, we have Nasaan sa Universal Health Protection ang batang naaabuso. On October 13, we have Andyan si Aling Pulis, tele-testifying ng bata. On October 20, Teacher, anong gagawin sa sumbong ng pang-aabuso, which tackles the school and educational system. On October 27, we have Sapat na ba ang pagkalinga? On November 3, we have Paano magkaroon ng masayang pamilya, and this refers to our Masayang Pamilya program, parenting program. On November 10, Kalusugang pangkaisipan sa lahat ng WCPU. On November 17, Datos, bakit ka ginagawa? And our closing on November 24, we have Sama-samang pagkalinga sa mga bata at kababaihang nakaranas ng karahasan. So with that, we have many things to look forward to, and please join us every Thursday at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are all very excited to take part in the series of webinars. So don't forget, every Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning up to 11:30 a.m. via Zoom and Facebook, follow the Ako Para sa Bata Facebook page for updates. These are the series of webinars. And if I'm not mistaken, 7,000 people have already registered to attend these webinars via Zoom. We are also equally excited for the partnership to be forged by the CPN and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines as they prioritize the welfare of children through addressing and responding to the need for an integrated approach towards child protection. To talk more about the partnership, ito yung matagal nang hinihintay na partnership between the Child Protection Network and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Let's all welcome on stage CPN's Director of the National Network of WCPUs, Attorney Katrina Legarda.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here with a little role as the slave of our great and awesome Doc Bernie. We met also 25 years ago. We have been working also for 25 years to try and engage the interest of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines in child protection work. Finally, we had the luck of Attorney Marian Ibadlit, my former student, who we in UP Willow C, which is the UP Women Lawyers Circle, and we have many members here today, we call Yen Yen, the chair of the Gender Committee in the IBP, the outgoing president of the IBP, Attorney Bert Estrada, and their board. Another momentous event, the signing of the IBP and CPN MOA to allow women and children in our Women and Children Protection Units proper access to justice. Thank you. Can we call you?
Thank you, Attorney Kat. And now to give us a message on behalf of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, let us call on their National Director on Gender and Development, Attorney Marian Ibadlit.
Thank you, Kat, for the introduction. I feel honored and pressured to be introduced by a woman I love and respect, a professor and lawyer I look up to, an advocate who inspired me to step out of my comfort zone and attempt to help women and children. More than a decade ago, I met Kat in a clan where I am based. I excitedly introduced myself as her student in UP Law. She remembered me and told me about her advocacy for the Child Protection Network. She was in my province to convince our governor to enter into a memorandum of agreement and support the Child Protection Unit to be put up in Aklan. It left a lasting impression in my mind. She was willing to go out of her way to help women and children. Years later, I approached her for the Integrated Bar of the Philippines Gender and Development Committee, a relatively young committee in the IBP, as it was included in the bylaws only in the year 2018. The objective of the IBP GAD is to integrate a human rights approach to enhancing gender equality in the legal profession. Gender stereotype and gender-based discrimination affects access to justice. I wanted Kat to lecture in a series of webinars to capacitate lawyers in providing gender-responsive approach in providing legal aid to survivors of violence against women and children and gender-based violence cases. She declined because of her prior commitments, but she introduced me to the 4 Rs of the Child Protection Network, which can be provided to the volunteer lawyers and legal aid clerks of the IBP Gender and Development Committee. It started a series of meetings which eventually led to the Memorandum of Agreement we are signing today. In this Memorandum of Agreement, we recognize the need for a multidisciplinary approach that encompasses medical, psychological, social, legal, judicial law enforcement, and educational services for abused women and children. The IBP and the CPN are committed to the integration of standards of excellence and accountability into CPN and PNP's Women and Children Center, as well as the Women and Children Protection Desk throughout the country. The social, medical, and forensic services provided by the Child Protection Network, especially its Women and Child Protection Management Information System, will support the volunteer lawyers of the IBP in providing competent and effective legal aid to survivors. We will have access to necessary information in legal counseling, preparation of pleadings and documents, and in strategizing with the police in filing of cases. We are assured that the survivors have the needed psychosocial support and will be empowered in making decisions during the prosecution of these cases. In entering this Memorandum of Agreement, the IBP fulfills its objective to elevate the standards of the legal profession, improve the administration of justice, and enable the bar to discharge its public responsibilities more effectively. The IBP will provide the violence against women and children, gender-based violence survivors access to free, sensitive, quality, and competent legal services. It will strengthen local referral mechanisms for VAWC-GBV cases and to recommend measures that would enhance access to justice for women, children, and persons of diverse sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sex characteristics. The IBP will engage the chapters and the handling lawyers in continuing capacity development on gender, SOGI, gender sensitivity, and survivor-centered approaches relating to handling the VAWGBV cases to ensure the provision of quality-sensitive and rights-based legal assistance and other applicable services. In one of the discussions, I admitted to Bernie and Kat that I am intimidated by the work we have to do. It is not easy to motivate all the officers and members of the IBP to actively participate in this important project. Bernie and Kat shared with me that they started in the PGH canteen. And now the CPN has 115 WCPU in 59 provinces and 10 cities. And so we agreed to start with pilot chapters, at least one member of the pilot chapter's GAD committee as the point person in charge of coordinating with the liaison officer of the CPN. We will then work on involving all the 87 chapters of the IBP, one region at a time. In turn, the CPN will provide the faculty that will work with the IBP in the creation of training programs for lawyers and in the institutionalization of curriculum and the provision of free legal access to violence against women and children, gender-based violence survivors.
It will also provide the IBP the software for the Women and Children Protection Management Information System and the new web-based database on women and children protection. In this partnership, we shall also collaborate on relevant anti-violence against women and children, gender-based violence advocacy, and information activities, research, policy review, and other initiatives. In our effort to provide competent legal aid to survivors of violence against women and children and gender-based violence cases, we also fulfill the objective of the IBP Gender and Development Committee to integrate the human rights-based approach to enhancing gender equality in the legal profession. The rights of women and children are basic human rights we need to protect. In upholding the rights of women and children, we also enhance gender equality in the legal profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Marian. Guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the pinnacle of our ceremony. Ito na nga po yun, the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement between the Child Protection Network Foundation and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Matagal na hinintay itong araw na ito. This will really strengthen the child protection networks. And, all right, so while we're setting it up, the Memorandum of Agreement between CPN and the IBP formalizes years of partnership between the two organizations in increasing victim survivors' access to justice. All right, at this point, may we call on stage the signees representing the Child Protection Network, Director of the National Network of WCPUs, Attorney Katrina Legarda, and of course, Executive Director, Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid. The signees representing the Integrated Bar of the Philippines IBP, National Director on Gender and Development, Attorney Marian Ibadlit, and Attorney Mylene Ormenita. Together, CPN and IBP intend to create, train, and maintain a pool of lawyers to handle cases involving violence against women and children and gender-based violence following the proper protocols. They will also train lawyers in gender sensitivity and child sensitivity to improve case management. They will work together with a multidisciplinary death review team asked to review cases of infant and child death for future actions. And lastly, they will collaborate on relevant anti-VAUSI, GBV, policy, and advocacy initiatives. Palakpakan po natin. Let's all give them a warm round of applause. Congratulations, CPN and IBP. Totoo na to, Attorney Kat. Totoo na to. After 25 years. Wow. May we now request our signatories to please stand for a photo to document this momentous occasion. Thank you to the representatives of... Naku, maghiwa-hiwalay daw. Siyempre, kailangan umanggulo, di ba? Palakpakan po natin Child Protection Network and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Thank you to the CPN and IBP for making this partnership possible for the future of our children's welfare. Nice! We've had quite a fruitful morning, full of insights and great motivation towards our many causes, but now our event has come to an end. As we close this session, it is our honor to call on the Chancellor of UP Manila to deliver her closing remarks. Please welcome, palakpakan po natin, Dr. Carmencita D. Padilla.
Let me congratulate Dr. Bernadette Madrid, UP Manila's pride, for the delivery for Laureate Lecture as the Ramon Magsaysay Awardee for 2022. I have seen her growth from the time of her pediatric residency and fellowship in ambulatory pediatrics to the time she became the head of the PGH Child Protection Unit. The past 25 years of her leadership has resulted in a network of care for abused children that is a model for the rest of the world. My deepest congratulations and felicitations on the commencement of the 14th Ako Para sa Bata Annual Conference. This year, which will run from September 29 to November 24. I know that there were already more than 6,000 registrants even weeks before this conference began. This year's theme is 25 years, the beginning, the building, and the institution of child protection in the Philippines. It celebrates the 25 years of PGH-CPU, the first multidisciplinary center efficiently providing comprehensive and coordinated medical, psychosocial, and legal services for victims of child abuse and neglect. It has served more than 26,000 children victims of abuse since 1997. Let me commend again Dr. Madrid for her passion and dedication, not only in establishing the child protection units in the Philippines, but also for creating ways to reach the children and their families during these times. I would like to commend the notable panelists for this Ramon Magsaysay Laureate Lecture, Shanta Sinha, a Magsaysay Awardee herself working on child labor in India, Patricia Lim Aken, the Child Protection Chief of UNICEF Philippines, and Pamela Marie Godoy, Gender-Based Violence and Emergency Specialist of UNFPA. This has been a memorable event with the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation Board member Emily Abrera moderating the panel. I also want to acknowledge our honorable guest, National Director on Gender and Development of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Attorney Marian Ibadlit, who has led the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement with the Child Protection Network with the aim to increase access to legal services of victims and survivors at the Women and Children Protection Units across the Philippines. Congratulations to the presenters of these opening ceremonies of Ako Para sa Bata, Child Protection Network. Overall conference chairs Dr. Stella Manalo, Dr. Mariela Castillo, and Dr. Norieta Balderrama. UNICEF Philippines, Consuelo Foundation, and of course, the Ramon Magsaysay Awards Foundation. On behalf of the University of the Philippines, this may be the end of this activity, but this is just the beginning of building an institution to guarantee child protection in the country. Rest assured that your UP family will continuously pour its support and assistance in your endeavors. Thank you and good day.
Dr. Carmencita Padilla of UP Manila for the wonderful words to close this session. We would also like to thank everyone who joined us this morning, as well as from the Ramon Magsaysay Hall, all the way from the different parts of Asia, via Zoom, via Facebook, and YouTube live stream. We were able to garner 1,000 Zoom participants and 2,600 viewers from Facebook. Please remember, for those who are on Zoom or on Facebook, please don't forget to answer the evaluation form in order to get a certificate. Nandyan po yung link. Ipoprovide po namin sa screen ang link at ang QR code. Ayan, nakikita nyo na po if you want to get an evaluation form. Special thanks to the wonderful team of Ramon Magsaysay Awards Foundation, led by their president, Susan Afan. Ma'am, maraming salamat po. Thank you, RMAF. And of course, thank you to the Child Protection Network Foundation staff who made all these possible. Thank you to our partners, Consuelo Zubel Alger Foundation and UNICEF. Thank you to Ma'am Emily Abrera, Trustee Ramon Magsaysay Awards Foundation for facilitating our timely discussion this morning. Syempre, thank you to Dr. Shanta Sinha, 2003 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from India, Patricia Lim Aken from UNICEF Philippines, and of course, Pamela Godoy. The insights and experiences you have shared in child rights and child protection have encouraged our participants to help in strengthening child protection system in their countries and communities. Siyempre, congratulations at maraming salamat sa iyong commitment and passion. Palakpakan po natin ulit. Please stand up to be recognized. Dr. Bernadette J. Madrid, Doc Bernie 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee. You have truly raised the bar high for creating momentous change through your advocacies. Thank you for inspiring us all. This concludes our lecture series and the 14th Ako Para sa Bata opening session. We hope that by working together, we can ensure quality, effective, and efficient protection services for children across the country. Once again, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Cara David. Ako, tayo, para sa bata. Magandang umaga po. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Thank you everyone for joining us in this year's RMTLI lecture series and the 14th Ako Para sa Bata opening session. Please, do not forget to join us in our other events as follows. The Ako Para sa Bata conference webinars are from October 6 to November 24, 2022, every Thursday at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Manila time. Follow Ako Para sa Bata Facebook page for more details. The next RMTLI lecture series featuring 2022 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee Sophia Rachim will be on October 12, 2022. Join the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation on November 30, 2022 for the 64th Ramon Magsaysay Awards formal presentation ceremonies. Follow the Ramon Magsaysay Award page on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube to stay updated. You may also find the Child Protection Network Foundation on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more information on their work on child protection. May we invite everyone to watch this short video on the journey of the Child Protection Network. Again, everyone, may we invite everyone to please watch this short video on the journey of the Child Protection Network. And this will be our small tribute to Dr. Bernie's work and her entire team. So let's watch this.
Since the establishment of the Child Protection Unit at the Philippine General Hospital in 1997, we have grown from one small clinic to over 120 women and children protection units across the Philippines. The challenges of providing services for abused women and children, ensuring proper training for professionals, and helping families move forward were daunting. But we've powered on since we were not alone. Let's take a look back on our 25-year journey in advocating for child protection and children's rights.
This event is brought to you by the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation and the Child Protection Network Foundation in cooperation with UNICEF and Consuelo Foundation. We would like to thank the official media partners of the 64th Ramon Magsaysay Awards Festival season: NHK, World Japan, Agence France Presse, and the ABS-CBN News. We hope you are enjoying your lunch, everyone. Thank you for celebrating with us. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Sa rumbangi, sa higdaan,